Hello and welcome to Event Tech Live Day 2, Session 2 on the main stage here. I hope everyone's having a good morning so far. And yeah, so up for our next session. So just a bit of housekeeping before we start. If you'd like to ask any questions, I don't want to fall off the stage, you can either scan the QR code here or go to glister.live/ETL21. Please do ask questions. We're not actually passing around a microphone in these sessions today. You probably can guess why. Today's next session is called Tech to Streamline Event Operations. And I'm going to hand over to Dan Assor, who's going to introduce a panel discussion, something I think is very pertinent as we get back to live and virtual events. So over to you, Dan.
Thank you so much. Hopefully everyone can hear me. So thank you to everyone watching live here at Event Tech Live and also virtually and on demand. So I'm going to introduce my panelists, and we're going to be talking about using tech to streamline the event operations function. First, to my left is Adam Jones. Adam is I've got here, serial event tech entrepreneur. And you founded your latest and most recent venture, Ffair, last year. And the Ffairs online platform automates the management of exhibitors' information and orders. So welcome, Adam. Thanks, Dan. We have the lovely Rebecca Davis, who's an events ops professional with several years' experience, and you've been at Informa Exhibitions and most recently at Clarion Events. So welcome, Rebecca.
Thank you.
We were going to have Marissa Beckman, but COVID has struck down a family member, so unfortunately she's not going to join us. Would like to, the people that are in the audience, it'd be great just to get before we start off, get a show of hands. Is anyone here from an exhibition organiser? No exhibition. Yep, one exhibition organiser. And what about the tech function within a business? Can you just put your hand up? Thank you. And what about any ops professionals? Any ops professionals? Okay. So thank you. It's always useful to know who's in front of us today. So the inference in the name of the discussion today, i.e. using tech to streamline operations, suggests that the operations function maybe is not fit for purpose the way that it's done at the moment. Just want to bring that to life. I'm going to come to you, Rebecca, first. In your day-to-day, can you just sort of espouse some of the challenges that you're facing from an operational perspective?
Yeah, so we don't tend to have like a household name for a platform that kind of serves the operations function. So we're kind of constantly relying on about 10, 20 tools and sort of botching them together. The kind of other issue that we have is we are kind of constantly playing piggy in the middle, because we've got the sales team with their kind of big platforms, you've got the marketing teams with their big platforms, and operations tend to constantly just be pulling and sifting through data, uploading it to other tools. It's so admin heavy, so time consuming, and lots of room for human error as well.
Sure, absolutely, thank you. And Adam, you, in a recent article, which I think was in Exhibition News, suggested that show organisers need to adapt or die now when it comes to exhibitions. Just bring that to life. Why do you hold that view?
So, not the organisers themselves, just events.
Yeah.
I'm genuinely concerned for the future of events if we don't change. I think we have to become more digitally focused, because brands that have exhibited have experienced something else during COVID. They've experienced virtual events and how streamlined it can be and how cost-effective and sustainable it can become. And I fear that if we think that we can return back to what we were like 2 years ago, then those exhibitors will stop exhibiting, because it's costly, it's unsustainable, it's a pain in the arse. And that's kind of fundamental. If you make it too hard for an exhibitor to exhibit, what are they going to do? They're going to stop exhibiting.
Sure. I think we can say pain in the arse. It's sort of pre-watershed.
Past 9 o'clock.
Yeah, absolutely. So talking about exhibitors, and I'm sure obviously there are a number of people in the room here, and we've all heard, and I used to work at an event organiser, and there's a lot of frustration that goes on to onboarding exhibitors, lots of paperwork. coming to you, Rebecca, do we make it hard as an industry for exhibitors to exhibit? And if so, what do you think we need to do to change that?
Yeah, it's very hard. I'm from the exhibitions industry and I wouldn't want to exhibit, to be honest. It is, yeah, we make them jump through so many hoops. We make them try and read a 60-page manual of language that they don't understand.
Sure.
And tell them that they've got to do things by deadlines and chase them, but not give them correct information. There's no wonder that the experience just isn't as high as it needs to be, and it comes back on customer service every time.
Sure, and it's almost like it's a one-size-fits-all approach. We send out a manual typically, and people obviously have to sift through that. Same question to you, Adam. I think you're going to suggest, yes, we do make it hard for exhibitors to exhibit. In your view, what do we need to do to challenge that and change it?
So I left a pretty nice, secure job at Freeman because I felt like I couldn't change the way we were doing things unless I did that. So I've exhibited, I'm exhibiting today, I've gone through the rigmarole of doing that, and I kind of want to practice what I preach. So I decided when I left Freeman to start Ffair and a company called Venn Media, which is an event organizer. We run a show called London Dessert Festival, and I didn't want to just build a tech firm. I wanted to build a tech firm that I could apply to the show that we were running to make sure that I could prove the concept and be the first user and user of my own tool, because I can be critical about it and adapt and improve it. And the reason for doing that is just because I wanted to make that journey better. I could see an opportunity. And I think a lot of people accept rubbish service. A lot of people go in and I think it's quite a British thing. You have a meal and someone comes along and says, "How's your meal?" And say, "Yeah."
But we still pay the
it's
service
lovely."
charge.
Yeah, it was a terrible meal, but hey. But that experience for exhibitors is so complicated, and the software products that are out there previously were overcomplicated because it was layers of information over layers of information, and nobody's ever looked at building a product with the end user in mind, i.e. the exhibitor in this situation.
Sure.
They've looked at the organizer benefit, the supplier benefit, and I've taken a different approach. So if it benefits the exhibitor, then ultimately it'll benefit the organizer. But that was our primary goal.
Sure, and I guess it comes down to a customer-centric approach. And Rebecca, you mentioned this before, and obviously Adam, your business is built on that. How do we go about putting, it seems like an obvious thing to say, but how do we go about putting the customer at the centre of the ops function? What sort of things do you think we can be doing to achieve that?
Yeah, I think at the moment we're just not giving ourselves enough time. We are so bogged down in paperwork and admin that we're not walking through customer journeys. We're not understanding the audience. We're not taking time to create an environment that suits the different personas that are coming on site. And we've also got two customers as well. We've got the ones who are visiting our shows, our delegate sponsors, and then we've also got our team as well. And we don't even give enough time for our team.
Sure.
The sales, it's a running joke in the industry, but how many times does a salesperson ask a question to the operations team and they just say, "Look in the manual, you've got it." And I want
that's
to be a
happened
team
many
player.
times in my career.
Yeah. And it's not fair. It's not fair on anyone. And the simple fact is that it's got to happen until we improve our systems and until we make our lives better, we work smarter.
So in coming back to tech as a potential solution, obviously there are lots of products, platforms out there for sales and marketing. And typically, and in my experience, and Adam, you'll probably back this up, it's then the purchasing is done as a silo. So, if the commercial team or the trading floor of an exhibition organizer wants a new system, they might get Salesforce in or another. And then, if marketing wants something, they then have a conversation. Do you think we need a more centralized approach?
I think so, and I think it's distribution of budget is imbalanced at the moment. And when I ran Show Plans, which was a floor plan company first and foremost, the only way I could sell that product was to spin it to become a sales tool.
Sure.
Because if I spoke to an operations person about paying for a floor plan, they would laugh at me because we have this
Yeah.
20-year-old ridiculous decision by someone at OPEX or someone at Melville to just give away floor plans. And once you give something away, it's very hard
Sure.
to change that and switch it back. So we're kind of in a dilemma where the operational tools are just almost valueless because they've been given away by someone 20 years ago and turning that back around. So the strategy I had with show plans, turning it into a sales tool, allowed me to talk to the sales team who have budget and then get the operations team to tick the box on the operational needs, which seems a little, that was the only way I could sell the product, but I shouldn't have had to have done that. I should have been able to provide a tool to the operations team that makes their job easier. We were talking about it earlier about the chicken and egg. If the teams don't adopt tools that automate the processes, then operations people will always be busy. They'll never be reduced. So they kind of need to make the time to find the tools that are going to allow them the freedom and pay the money for them.
Sure, and I think there's also an incentive from an organisational level, potentially, Rebecca, in terms of making sure that the efficiency to order from an exhibitor perspective is much better, and then also there's an opportunity to get incremental revenues, I guess, as well. If it's done from that point of view. So I think, Adam, you mentioned this before in our pre-chat, like IKEA or Amazon, or how do we keep the money circulating within our ecosystem? I don't know, Rebecca, whether you've got sort of a view on that in terms of providing incentives to achieve change.
Yeah, definitely. We need to keep it in our own supply chain, and we've been hit over the last 18 months, so we're all protecting each other at the moment. And there is lots that we can do. We just don't find the time. We don't look from a customer point of view. And then we're just shocked at the end when the NPS score comes back saying that the pre-event experience wasn't great.
Sure.
We've just got to sit down. We've got to take a backward step and take a holistic view on how we incentivize and improve that. And
again, coming to you, Rebecca, should we consider having a central hub of information about venues and procedures? Because, if, at the moment, if Excel or Olympia or another venue decides to, or they change something that's happening, whether it's a loading bay or delivery instructions, they just send it to each organiser, but there's no central sort of information hub. Do you think that would be useful? What part can suppliers play in this?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, if venues, for example, a venue does change things, a lot of the time it does actually just come out in conversation. So you rely on having conversations. There's not a clean, streamlined communication for these things being updated to all organisers. And yeah, a hub with all of that information that is fed through onto a system so that we're not having to constantly go out looking for that information would be really good. And we need to stop being competitive with each other as well. It's factual information. We're not adding our own organiser spin onto anything, so it needs to be available.
Sure. Would you concur with that, Adam? And from an operational team perspective, would it be useful for the industry to have a central hub?
Yeah. So with our online manual builder, you can spin up a brand new show based on previous data. So you can copy data from another show. So you're not having to build a manual from scratch or copy and paste everything over and over again. Sure. But the extension to that is to allow us to actually have a manual builder where you choose your venue, which pulls down the operational components of the venue's regulations. So you can build these things up very quickly. But what it means is if one person, like a Marisa Beckman, for example, manages the NEC and the Excel's regulations in a central place, that then feeds out to every other system and automatically updates it, which is very simple to do.
Sure. And in terms of the current tools that you might use, Rebecca, and your peers might use, what place do you think automation and integration has within the ops function?
Means everything.
Yeah.
Because we are constantly botching systems, and we're constantly, as I said earlier, playing that middleman between different systems. So we have to rely on things like Zapier or Automator, and again, there's lots of products in Microsoft Office Suite, like Power Automate, AI Builder. All of that is there at our disposal, that we're still having to use and botch and try and manipulate. But again, that's time consuming, and no one wants to really play with these things. The other issue we've got is security as well, because for working for large organizations, their security teams never pass these tools like Zapier, and yeah.
Sure. And I guess, Adam, you know, if we don't implement tech to solve these issues, then obviously human error is going to play a big part. I guess, you know, people in the audience that are watching have, you know, had some horror stories of that happening.
Yeah, I think it comes down to sources of truth, and I think integrations help with that. So if the CRM is your source of truth and there's a mistake in that source of truth, then it flows through to every system. But that's easier to manage, because if you change it at the source of truth, then it changes everywhere else. You've got one point of failure rather than many. So I think data flow is really important. I think as a tech provider, the interesting thing about integrations is someone will ask me, can you integrate? And the answer is always yes, but you've got to take a step back and think about what exhibitor journey you want to create first. So start with the journey of the user, and then the technical integration can then kind of come secondary. But once you know what you're trying to achieve, that's your starting point.
Sure. Just a reminder, everyone that's here and watching live, if you have a question for the panel, please do put it up. Okay, shall we go to a couple of questions? Just a natural pause while we wait for some questions to come through.
Thanks. We actually had quite a few questions through, so it's
Good.
quite a good time.
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to start with the hardest question. I think it's the hardest question. Can exhibiting in today's society still be beneficial as pre-COVID? If not, how can we ensure it's still as beneficial as it was before? That's quite a big picture question, isn't it, that one?
Yeah.
Oh, here we go.
I've forgotten the beginning of it.
Can exhibiting in today's society still be as beneficial as pre-COVID?
Who wants to take that one?
I don't mind. I mean, I think at the end of the day, we're still longing for those serendipitous moments that you don't get online. Online is great. There's the analytics, there's the sustainability goals that people don't have to travel to attend. And so there's a place for both, but yeah, face-to-face still has a place. But we need to make sure that we are adding value to our customers every step of the way, and we need to give them a reason to go down to that show, to travel, to spend that money on hotels, to spend that budget on something that is a lot more costly than just a Zoom call. And that's why ops need to keep making themselves customer focused. To add that value and make them have a reason to get down to those halls.
Adam, same too?
Yeah, similar. I love events. I love live events. I wouldn't be in this space if I didn't. And I see the value in them. I see the opportunity. Basically, what you're doing is superpowering your marketing message. You're getting someone else to bring thousands of people into a venue to come and see you. And the value for money in putting people in front of you is huge. It's the element that's too hard pre-show, because typically when you buy a stand, you think you're going to buy a stand, turn up at the show and sell stuff. You buy the stand and then you get inundated with stuff.
Thank you. And should we take another one
Actually,
or two?
one that leads quite nicely into the next question. We send our exhibitors lots of emails. Deadline, 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 rebook, deadline, deadline. You can tell I was an organiser, can't you? Is there a better way of communicating with exhibitors, Adam, with through Ffair, or have you seen something that, is there a better way of communicating?
Yeah, so we've taken the approach of just a basic project management step by step. So a to-do list that breaks it down into overdue, to do, waiting for approval and done. So it's very, very clear and transparent over what the requirements are, because No one's really done that before. You're supposed to search within this 90-page document for the forms that you may or may not need to fill in. So building a task list in a simple form is one step. The second step is to customize based on the build type. So space-only stands see the space-only task, shell scheme see the shell scheme task, and not mixing them up. So it consolidates down. So yeah, that's our approach.
Should we take another? Or do you have something to add, Rebecca, to that?
No, I think all I would say to that is we need to kind of remember that communication isn't just email. You can have exhibitor days, and we've got the tech now to do that. You can have different webinars on different subject matters. You can communicate messages in a variety of different ways. It doesn't have to just be an email, which they don't read.
Well, yeah, you make a good point. They don't read it. We know they don't read it, and yet we still send them.
Yeah.
And actually, out of the last 18 months, perhaps now people, from an exhibitor perspective, will engage through, a virtual, as you said, webinar or some other sort of educational training but before the event. Should we take another question?
Yeah, this one's for Adam. Are there any project management tools that you, actually it's quite nice because you mentioned project management tools. Are there any project management tools being used in other industries that inspire you for Ffair?
Yeah, I mean, I use so many. Trello's a very open source one that's very simple but customizable. But I use Jira on a day-to-day basis managing the development team, and that's powerful. I mean, that's huge. I think that's too powerful for this industry. Actually, what we're trying to do is make something, well, there's a saying, it's very easy to make something complicated. It's very complicated to make something easy. And that's what we're trying to achieve here. If we put Jira in front of an exhibitor, it would blow their mind. But for a development team, it's great. But there's elements of Jira that are beautiful that we've tried to extract. We've also taken the approach of a design-first methodology, so it saves us time, so we can develop something, try it, and then change the design if it doesn't work, rather than redevelop it, which is really expensive. And we've also taken the approach of using material design, which is a Google-based user experience standard. So when a user uses it, they feel it's familiar. It feels like a Google product. So they're not having to learn something new, or if you've used Google before, they're kind of onboarded pretty quick.
Sure. We'll take some further questions in a few minutes.
I'll stand
That's
up.
Okay. Thank you. So, in terms of barriers to change, if we all accept there needs to be a change, and change will be agile, it's not just going to be one day and you wake up and everything's changed the next. What do you think the barriers are at the moment, Rebecca? Do you think it's individual companies doing it their own way? What are you experiencing?
Yeah, I think some companies do it their own way, and they may have a system, but you can only use it if you use their products. There's not like a turnkey solution that is just available for everyone, really at the moment. Other barriers, I mean, budget's always going to come down to it. Ops
Sure.
always take out budget for tech because they'd rather increase the bar spend or enhance the feature area. And yeah, we need to add a software fee to our budgets.
Yeah, and I think ultimately, as we know, tech's an investment over a period of time. It's not just going to be show to show. So it obviously needs to come from, management, C-suite level as well. And also, Adam, I know we've spoken about this, the role of industry. So some of the industry bodies, whether it's the AEO, ESSA, AEV, and a whole host of others. What do you think the industry, how have they reacted so far? What's your take on this?
So I think a few years back, the AEO and ESSA members got together, and I think the operations team built a perfect nirvana of a tech solution. Sure. Of what it should look like, and I've seen it so many times. And actually, when I left Freeman, I built it, I designed it, I prototyped it, and I had a working Figma solution. But before it went into development, I had it kind of costed up and timed up. It would take a year and a half. It would cost £1.5 million, and who's really going to pay that kind of money to get there? I'm not. I mean, we charge £500 for an online manual, so there's not enough margin in that to start reinvesting and building this utopia. So I think, great, put put the ideas our way, but actually back it with some funding. If
Yeah.
the AEO could say...
Do you think grants?
Yeah, I think a grant from the AEO to put towards tech firms to build this, I think long term it will benefit our industry, therefore it will benefit them.
Sure.
So, yeah.
What about leadership, Rebecca? You know, as we said, it's got to come from the top. Do you feel potentially a lot of the leaders in the industry come from a commercial background, whether through the sales line, if you like, rather than ops? Do you think that may be a barrier? So they tend to look at sales and marketing first from a tech perspective before ops?
Yeah, that is definitely true. Your leaders do tend to come from more commercial backgrounds and haven't had the headaches that many operation professionals get. However, on the flip side, I do think operations need to push more. I think we need to be more pragmatic. I think we need to take some time aside to generate data that proves how many hours we're spending on this, how many platforms we're using, how much we have to strip away data from other sales, and just create a picture for them that shows that we're making our lives so much more difficult than we need to be.
Just one thing to add on that. I very rarely get an email from anyone in sales after 5. I very rarely get...
What are you saying?
Very rarely get an email from marketing.
I'm going to send you one today at 5:10.
I frequently get emails from operations people at 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
It kind of worries me that ops people don't really kind of push this message home, so I will.
Sure.
I don't think it's fair that operations teams are expected to pick up the slack on not spending. So if your operations team are working till 11 o'clock and you calculated how many hours are being spent on their time working, if they paid extra, then paying £1,000 for a tool that reduces that workload is a good investment, because otherwise you're just going to burn the team out.
Yeah, and it's I mean, we joke, but it's an interesting point, because there's definitely, and Rebecca, you'll know this, and Lou, if she was here, Lou Kiwanuka was going to join us from ESSA. You know, there's fewer ops people have come back into the industry. Lots of people got made redundant. They've gone to other industries. The grass has been green on the other side. So you've got lower resource pool. And so, you know, it is a good opportunity now for investment in tech to sort of fill that gap, if you like, and deal with things like mental health and well-being for the teams.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel if we're not going to change now, when we've got this opportunity post-COVID, then I do worry about when we will change. But yeah, I mean, you hear it, everyone is worried about recruitment and the experience we've got in the industry at the moment. And I've had conversation with people where now that they're back in the swing of it, they're online at 11 o'clock, they've still not finished their job, so they're back online at 7 a.m. in the morning. They are thinking about leaving the industry, and we're going to keep going through that cycle.
And Adam, in terms of data, because obviously, you know, each organiser is going to be sort of closed in terms of what data, and there was a whole, obviously, issue with regards to data for event tech platforms. Do you think, you know, not having a neutral party to collect this data is possibly a barrier to change, and what can we do?
I don't think so. I've always kind of had the mindset of just be aware of what tech companies are using the data for, and if they're not transparent about what they're using the data for, then don't use them. But if you're using data to make people's jobs easier, to enhance the experience, then that's not a bad thing. We all have to adhere to GDPR regulations. We all should be ICO registered and follow certain strategies. So there shouldn't be the great fear factor that there is, but there's a limited few suppliers who don't look after data in the way they would, and it screws it up for everybody else.
Should we take some more questions, just for the last few minutes?
I've got my mic working now. We've got a few more, actually. Do you think, I love this question, do you think online exhibitors have the same problems? And if so, do you have recommendations to solve these problems? I think when they may say online, they might mean virtual exhibitors.
Virtual. I think there's different challenges. I think the operational challenges are far fewer. The return on investment and being able to measure return on investment is easier online because it's all trackable. Whereas here, not everything's trackable. We give great tools. Conduco is brilliant because you can, as a visitor, passively show your interest in a company and you get that lead, but it's harder to quantify the impact of being at a physical event. So I think, I'm kind of shirking away from this question a little bit because it's a tough question.
Okay, there's a couple more. Rebecca, one for you. How does the amount of ops admin impact your creativity? Because ops people are creative, right?
Yeah, and we are creative naturally, and we want the opportunity to be creative as well. And again, like even just an example at the moment, I'm wanting to create feature areas that are stitched together based on the branding of the event. And I want the opportunity to do that, but I don't have the time, so I've had to outsource that to somebody else. And that, it makes, I love my job. I get so much satisfaction from my job, but there are elements that I want to be able to do. I also want the time to go to other shows for inspiration. I want the time to speak with exhibitors and really understand what their pain points are so that I can create the perfect environment for them that's going to trigger emotive responses. And I think operations don't necessarily think like that at the moment, or certainly in my opinion, or maybe that's just me, but you just don't have the time to.
Sure, thank you. Do we have any further?
Do you feel that exhibitor platforms fully appreciate how the exhibitor's own team works? Obviously, when somebody's exhibiting, I was reading this question for a little while, but they've got marketing and sales, they've got their own event managers if they're corporates. How is that satisfied with multiple people logging? How does that work currently, and how does that need to change?
So the way we've built it is typically the person that buys the stand isn't the person that needs to do the admin and the task lists and understand what the requirements are. So the easy way to solve it is just have a multi-user platform. So the marketing person can log in and do their bit, the salesperson can log in and do their bit, and that's really simple. And it's one of those things, why the hell weren't we doing that before? It's pretty normal, so that's the way to tackle it.
Sure, and I guess then there needs to be more collaboration with the exhibitor community, or with your exhibitor community, depending on the industry that you work within. Would you say that? So obviously can't just be the organisers, can't be internal. You actually need to speak to the exhibitors, which I guess you've done when obviously you were setting your product up, Adam.
Yeah, and I think that's right. You've got to speak to them, and you've got to stop assuming you know your exhibitors, because the number of times I've heard people say, well, our exhibitors are stupid. I cannot believe how many times I've heard that line.
I've never said that.
No, I didn't think you would. But they're not stupid. They're struggling with bad systems or bad processes, and I think one way to make it easy is not necessarily the tech, but the content in the tech. An online manual, and we give a very flexible tool for someone to put content in, but if it's crap in, it's crap out. It's the same with a CRM. If your data's bad, then your experience is going to be bad. And some of the manuals that I've helped our customers load into our system now, I find email addresses of people from 2012 that, because it's regurgitated content that haven't been stripped out, or links to companies that don't even exist anymore, and it's the content, and this comes down to time. Who in an operational position has time to read their own 98-page document?
Yeah.
So it's difficult.
No, and it's true. And I guess, Rebecca, sort of final thoughts from you. I mean, ultimately, if we could have a situation where an exhibitor's coming back to an event, they logged in, they knew what they took from last year as at least as a starting point. That already cuts some of the time, and also means that they could be upsold, and you just have more of a consultative conversation with them. How confident are you that we're going to reach that sort of point where the exhibitor journey is improved?
I am confident. I don't think we're asking for too much. I mean, obviously, I'm not a developer, so that's easy for me to say. But the tech exists. The tech is out there. It's been proven that it exists for other groups, your marketeers, your sales. I think I am confident we can build that. I think we need grants. We need to get working with the companies. If it is the likes of a tech company reaching out to ESSA or the AEO, we need to create an advisory group of those people, those operations people who are also tech savvy, who understand two sides of the fence and work together to make that solution. And hopefully, over time with data and just enough fight, we can prove that we need to spend the money on that. It's going to value.
Sure. Thank you. And Adam, you're obviously at the coalface with your new products. How has it been received? Has you been frustrated by the response, or have people?
The response has been good, and it's interesting because we provided the online manual for this show, so all of these exhibitors have used my product. It's a little bit, I felt a bit vulnerable, but we've had some really positive comments, and a little bit tongue-in-cheek. Paul Allett, the operations guy here, said, "It's the best of a bad bunch. I'll take that."
Nice.
The guy at Brella over there said, "Yeah, it's one of the better ones." So, but I joke. We're making it simpler, and we're continually improving.
Sure.
I kind of liken software. Well, I've spoken to people that have seen our product 6 months ago, and they said, "Oh yeah, it doesn't have all the functionality we need." That was 6 months ago.
Sure.
Think about it like a Tesla. It's the only car that improves over time. No other car improves. It gets worse. It rusts. The wheels fall off. It becomes crap. Something better comes out. But a Tesla, in a month's time, will be better because it drives itself. It picks you up from the plug. Software's like that. So don't take a frame of opinion from 6 months ago. Take it from the current state.
Yeah. Thank you. Do we have any final questions in the last couple of minutes?
One more question. You mentioned earlier that we need to become more digitally focused. What can we do to achieve this?
Who wants to take that one?
I can take that. I think engage with tech firms, engage with companies like ours, and building the groups from Assor is a good thing. And there's a lot of tech companies here, but a lot of the tech companies here are visitor focused because that's the thing that's most exposed. Sure. Most people are exposed to the troubles of being a visitor. Fewer are exposed to seeing the troubles of an exhibitor. Even fewer are exposed to the troubles that an operations team has. So I'm probably in a pool of 5 people that understand technology to a point you can develop a platform and operational needs. So there's not many people out there that can really help with this.
Okay. Did you want to add to that, Rebecca?
No, I think just with operations, we just need to keep the imagination going as well. And I think with operations as well, we're so kind of head down in our jobs. I think we need to spend more time on YouTube, on GitHub, whatever it may be, just trying to find solutions so that we can at least go out to these tech companies and be like, oh, actually, I've seen this elsewhere, but it doesn't provide this solution. How can we build it? And yeah, as Adam said, just engage with the tech companies.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much to my panelists. This was a special OpsNest Live panel discussion here at Event Tech Live. Thank you for everyone that's watching live and on demand. So thank you, Adam Jones from Ffair. Thank you, Rebecca Davis. Thank you. If you're interested in joining the OpsNest and benefiting from the courses and events they host, please visit courses.opsshaper.uk. And if you want to speak to Adam afterwards, he'll be, I'm sure, very happy to speak to you. You've got your exhibition stand here.
Stand 3106.
Yeah, or visit ffair.co.uk, double F, which we understood beforehand, Ffair stands for...
It's market in Welsh.
There you go. So, little information. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Rebecca, Adam, Dan. Thank you for hosting the session.